Hi there, my name is Zoe Hodgden. I'm a junior in the painting program at Heron School of Art. Thank you so much for considering me for this award. I'd like to take you on a tour of some of my foundational work and my current works. So very briefly, I would like to show some of my growth over the foundation courses of Painting 1 and Painting 2. Painting 1 was focused on still lifes, focusing on accuracy of drawing, of proportion, of perspective, of color, of value, all that good stuff. I chose to showcase my first and last paintings from Painting 1 to show just how much I improved in those regards. And then moving on to Painting 2, there was a focus on painting figures from life, of accurately rendering the lighting and accurately involving them in the space around them. And this was my first figure painting in that course and my last of the course. And you can see the improvements. And with that very brief overview of some of my foundational progress, I'd like to bring you into some of my more contemporary work. I like to title this portion of the presentation my Pushing Boundaries section. This was work over the last 2 semesters that was, again, wholly new for me in a very impactful way. New techniques, new methods, new ways of exploring concepts. Just really exciting stuff for me. I wanted to start off this section with my very first abstraction. So it's an abstraction of a room in the Munich residence over a series of 6 different panels. And like I said, this was my very first venture into abstraction, um, pushing color and pushing form, messing with saturation and new mediums. Um, and this project was invigorating for me. It allowed me to find a looseness that I previously did not have, and really just allowed me to build confidence and trust in my creativity and myself as a painter. Moving right along, this is a piece I affectionately call Dishwasher. Uh, the intent of this project was to take something incredibly boring and mundane and make it exciting and invigorating and interesting through the process of painting. And what I love about this is that the process was also boring and mundane and a chore. Each color and each gradient was individually taped, and that was very time consuming and tedious, just like doing the dishes is, just like the interior of a dishwasher is. But at the end of it, after sticking with it for so long, you're left with a really satisfying result, right? Just like having a set of clean dishes that you can put away, just like finishing a painting that took you over 80 hours to tape and paint. With this painting, I'll be concluding the Breaking Boundaries section of my presentation, and this painting breaks the most of my boundaries. It is wholly unlike anything that I've ever painted or explored before. The painting itself is a very large 60 by 60-inch canvas, and at the center of the canvas there is a small line of text, and it very simply reads, "This is the culmination of over 50 hours of work." With this painting, I really wanted to test the boundaries of what makes a painting, of what a painting can be, what makes a painting meaningful. I had the folk tale of the Emperor's New Clothes in mind, where all of these seamstresses put in so much invisible work into making the Emperor's new clothes, only for him to walk down in the parade and have the child shout, "But he's not got anything on," right? And it's that invisible work that I'm exploring and that absurdity of, well, there's no product for all of that invisible work, right? And it was just a mental game completing this painting, and I'm so proud of the result. I went through probably 50 to 60 different renditions of the text over the course of that 50 plus hours before I ended up on this simple phrase. And I think this simple phrase is all that I need on this absurdly large white canvas to make that impact. With this next and final section of the presentation, I'd like to focus on my recent works discussing motherhood and all of the trials and tribulations that come with it. This is a very personal body of work to myself as a new mother, and work that I find very validating and necessary. I gave birth to my son, Espen, over the summer of 2022. And I just remember being at home with him all day, every day, exploring this new person, exploring my new body, my new mental state of mind. And I just remember sitting there thinking, I cannot wait to go back to campus so I can dissect my stretch marks. And this was the very first assignment of that new semester. Um, this is a painting that's not a painting, right? So there is no paint that's on this canvas, and I use that to my advantage. Stretch marks I just find so intriguing objectively. You can really see the layers of skin and sinew and flesh in a really disturbing but somehow beautiful way. And my relationship with my body is complicated, so I wanted to focus on how interesting stretch marks were with this. So I took that idea of layers of skin and ran with it. There's layers of torn paper, over layers of tissue, over layers of yarn, over layers of torn like color swatches. All of this combined to make a very abstracted version of my own stomach that's very intriguing and interesting to look at. This next painting is so simple, but it's truly one of my favorite paintings that I've made thus far. Um, at its base, it is myself holding my son Espen, looking out into an expanse of orange. Um, and I made this painting with maternal anxiety in mind. So the orange actually comes from the color of the sky in Oregon during wildfire season, which is so much more prevalent now because of climate change, right? Um, and the issue of climate change is very worrying as a new mother. It's this whole idea of what kind of world am I bringing my son into? And so I wanted to take that vulnerability and that unease and represent that with this painting. And so I made myself and my son vulnerable. I made us naked looking out into the great beyond. But at the same time, it's not entirely without hope, and it's not entirely and inherently an anxious painting. There's nothing about our body language that is anxious. And the response to this painting has actually been fascinating because there are some that responded in a way that, oh, yes, it looks like you're protecting him. And there's some that are like, oh, it looks like you are elated and happy, and orange is a happy color. And that ambiguity of just posing myself and my son looking out into this orange expanse that can be interpreted so many different ways is really what I love most about this painting and what I find makes it the most successful. Moving right along, this is a painting that I titled Mental Load. It was one of my final paintings from painting three. The prompt was to create a constructed self. So I took that idea and I ran with it to explore all of the mental loads and mental burdens of a new mother. So I created a shadow of myself through my burdens. Within the painting, there is an old towel, a reusable laundry bag, some pills, old dog grooming supplies because I used to be a dog groomer and now I'm not, and now I'm a stay-at-home parent. So I've lost that financial security. Dirty socks, nail clippers, shopping tags, a tape measure, and baby toys. All things that, just weigh on my mind and take up space on the day to day. And I chose to have them make a shadow and have that shadow not be the most obvious thing. I've had people look at this work and they say, oh, it's beautiful. I love how you painted everything, and not even see the shadow. And I love that. I love that you have to search through the rubble to find yourself, to find the portrait, to find me, because that is an accurate representation of what digging through these mental burdens as a new parent is. You really have to dig in there to find yourself again. With this painting, I really wanted to again explore the maternal comfort and anxieties around video baby monitors. They're an incredibly useful tool, but there is always this juxtaposition of, oh my gosh, is my baby sleeping? Are they breathing? Are they dead? What is going on? And having the comfort of knowing that they are okay and that they're in their crib currently. So I made this painting with Ophelia by Jean Everett Millay in mind. Um, I, referenced the water in the foreground and the flowers of the landscape with the crib sheet. And I really just wanted to balance that sweet, sleeping babe on the crib sheet with the anxiety, with, the dead battery sign, with this baby monitor looming over this kind of like ambiguous, deep, dark space. With this diptych, I wanted to harken back to my previous work on stretch marks, and I wanted to keep exploring that, but in a different way. Um, Something unfortunate that I've learned as a new mother is that there is very little representation of real mothers' bodies. Media is full of images of women that snapped back. And that's just not the reality for most women. And it's been really alienating not having that visual representation. So I not only wanted to tackle that, but I also wanted to tackle body neutrality and then celebration. Um, I wanted to very objectively portray my body. I wanted to create that representation. But then through representation, through objectively looking at my body and painting it accurately, I wanted to seek body neutrality. When you paint something from a reference, you're looking at color and form very neutrally. You're looking at the size and the shape and the hue, and that's it. Um, and so through this process of accurate representation, I was seeking neutrality. And then once I had that neutrality, with the second part of the diptych, I took my body and I expanded upon it and I celebrated it. I took all of the same colors and I did an initial base layer of that and then I added to it. I took my C-section scar and I expanded upon it. I took my new deformed belly button and I created this interesting interior space with it, all with the aim of not only finding neutrality, but acceptance and celebration. This piece is the final portion of my presentation. It is also my most recent painting and the one that I'm truly the most excited about. Um, the piece involves a canvas upon which is painted myself holding my son Espen during a breastfeeding session. The breastfeeding session has been interrupted by a viewer, and Espen is gazing directly towards the viewer. But it's not just this painted canvas, right? So it's got a frame around it, and attached to the frame is a curtain rod, and a curtain is attached to it. This is a zoomed in shot of the painting itself. And moving along, this painting is intended to be interactive, right? So initially, the painting is hung on the wall, closed, and viewers are invited to interact with it how they will. And what's really interesting about this piece is that every single viewer is going to have a different reaction based on their point of view, right? Based on how they're raised, societal standards, the country you come from, every little thing that impacts your life, right? At the center of the canvas, where the curtains are aligned, you open it up and you see my breast. And this might be off-putting for some people. They might initially close it back up. Some other people might not be off-put and open it all the way to reveal the intimate breastfeeding scene. Some people might close it again to give privacy. Some people might leave it open because they're comfortable with breastfeeding. But the whole intent of the piece is to explore individuals' points of view and their point of view of breastfeeding, and how, even though the content and the subject matter of the painting never changes, the interaction does, and it's unique to the individual. And with that, this concludes my presentation. And I just really wanted to thank you so much for your interest, your attention, and your consideration. It's truly an honor to be considered for this award.